closet, also known as the Jim McCarthy Voiceovers World Headquarters Studio. This is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast. This is episode 34 of the JMVO Weekly Primer. This podcast is about making your life better through marinating your mind in good stuff. My name is Jim McCarthy, owner, operator, and chief bottle washer at jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com. I believe that as business owners, entrepreneurs, and overall salespeople, we are bombarded by negativity every day, and it's the last thing we need. If you want to see your life and business change for the better, consume nurturing, good stuff. Now, this is kind of an interesting episode. This is the first time I've taken the podcast out on the road, set up the microphones. This is happening after what we call our B&I meeting. It's the best meeting of the week, where we get in front of, I would say, about 60 to 70 other people, sometimes even 75, and talk about what we're looking to do in business, who we're looking to meet, any connections to be made. We can talk a little bit about our business. And one of those gentlemen, one of the things that we do in B&I are one-to-ones. And I figured, why not make a one-to-one with one of the members and make it a podcast? So today I have got Kevin Watson with Churchill Mortgage on the show with me. We're going to be talking about basically, a lot of how you got started. Okay. And, I'm big into marinating your mind in good stuff because I believe your life reflects what you surround yourself with, what you, put into your head, right? And also who you're hanging out with.
100%.
So tell me a little bit about, and get up on the mic if you will.
Yep.
How did you begin in Churchill Mortgage? It was pretty recent. Have you always been in the mortgage industry?
I have been originating mortgages in Middle Tennessee for 25 years this year.
25 years, nice.
Yeah, so I've been with Churchill 7 of those.
Right.
And actually was with Churchill back in 1999.
Right.
And saw a vision of what Mike Hardwick did with a mortgage company. Mortgage business is pretty tough.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of details and a lot of stress because you got people buying homes, and refinancing is the largest debt that anyone has, hopefully. And we're trying to help them manage that. And so you find a lot of shops that aren't run as well. And when I saw what Churchill had back in 1999, I actually caught the vision of that and went out and started my own company about a year later and had it for 5 years, and realized that it was a little tougher than what I thought, and what Mike had was really special. So went to another company for a little while, and then Mike called me and asked me to come back and manage the Brentwood office.
Yeah. And
came back and loved it, and I've been there ever since. So hopefully they won't make me ever leave. I'll just stay there,
right
because we've got something really special there.
So you said 8 years with Churchill.
Yes.
Okay. 25 years total in the business. Did you aspire from a young age? I mean, what did you always want to do?
Yeah, I remember my dad was a banker and also a 2-star general in the reserve, so 2 full-time jobs. And I remember he was always my mentor. I asked him, I said, Dad, I was in college and going through business school at University of Alabama, Roll Tide. And so he said, I said, Dad, I don't know what I want to do in life. And so he was about 21 years older than me. And he said, that's okay, son, I don't either yet. And just keep doing your best. And so that's what I did, and kind of fell into the mortgage business from being unemployed, from literally being fired from a job, and just trying to find a job. And a recruiter found a job for me, and found that I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the financial part, and I enjoyed helping people find a solution and putting the pieces of the puzzle together to form a strategy to help them either refinance and save money, or to help them buy a home. And that's where I really get passionate about, is helping them do that.
But in the first couple of years, I would imagine it wasn't like that. It was, kind of figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, a lot of learning. And one thing that I learned, I remember when I got out of college, I kind of internally swore to myself I'd never read another book. And unfortunately, that's not the right answer.
You got to keep on reading.
Yeah. But, I got in an organization that was a networking organization, and they emphasized, at that time it was cassettes. They emphasized
training on cassettes.
listening to successful cassettes, not podcasts or anything like that. And
it was the podcast of the time.
Yeah, and that was my car was my roaming university. And ever since that time that I got involved, which was about 1993, I have been an avid listener to books or CDs. It's progressed into podcasts now and online books, and so I've turned my car into a roving university, and a lot of that is about the mortgage business specifically, and then a lot of it is about leadership and about, like you said, pouring good things in to feed the brain so good things come out. And boy, it's just been transformational.
Right.
And so my real education started after college, and that's where I feel the difference is in my life. And as Darren Hardy says, right, on the compound effect, those little bitty changes that you make over time take you to a totally different trajectory, in life.
Small shifts.
Yeah. So he says in his book, if you started in Los Angeles on the way to New York and you had a 1 degree difference, right, you wouldn't end up even in the state of New York.
Yeah. Up in Canada.
Yeah.
Or
so it's just
Bermuda
looking at those small little changes, and I kind of did it. I'm just an Alabama boy. I don't have a high IQ, honestly. I always say I believe in I will over IQ, and that's one of my big beliefs.
Interesting.
Is that my work ethic outdoes my IQ every day, and so I just kind of luckily, dumbly came across that educating myself every day and continuing to. Now I'd crave it, and if I miss a couple of days of doing that, I sort of crave doing that. And I read still, but I do listen a lot more than I read.
I'll be honest, the reason why I wanted you on was, of course, being a pal and a member here with us, but I saw you driving the 6 Series.
Oh, I love that car.
And you know what?
That's one of my dream cars.
The 6 Series is like, that guy knows what he's doing, okay?
That's such a sweet car.
It's a very sweet car.
Here's a great thing, it's paid for.
You gotta love that.
Yes.
Getting into it, obviously, like we were talking about, those little 1 degree shifts, changing the trajectory of your business and things of that nature.
Yeah.
What were some of the things you were listening to back then? Do you remember some of the more impactful things?
Well, and like I started with a networking group. It was one of those MLM networking things. And most of them were, success stories. So sort of biographies of people that were successful. And if you've ever listened, or I say listened, but read any of Andy Andrews' books, Andy does a great job he's a big reader of biographies and learning how people went from where they are or where they started to where they were, and how they used failure not as really failure, but as a learning tool every single time. And that's the theme that goes throughout most biographies, if you look at them, is that they all had failures. And
it's necessary.
Yeah, and you kind of embrace those and say thank you for them, and what can I learn from it, and continue forward. But I heard one time from one of my mentors that the difference between successful and unsuccessful people is 2 things. Number one, once you fall, how fast you get up. Okay, so you don't have a long time down in the dumps and poor pitiful me. And then the second thing is how fast you implement something, how quickly you implement a new idea. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but my main thing was just listening to biographies and listening to people who have had success. And in a way, it kind of helped me see, wow, if that guy can do it, I can do it.
Right.
So it's really building my belief. I think people are limited by their belief. And I think that's the limiting factor for most people. I think Tony Robbins says that divorce the story of your limited beliefs and marry the story of your unlimited potential.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday with Bradley, who's I'm a big fan of his, and he was talking about how if your subconscious, or his guest was talking about it, he was a hypnosis specialist.
Oh, cool.
If your subconscious isn't programmed that way, you really, it'll kind of dictate what your results will be.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But that came with, again, listening to a lot of stuff, marinating your mind in very good stuff early on.
Right.
Some of the competition you had, and mortgages are extremely competitive. It's a commodity business.
Yeah.
Tell me about the different ways you learned about differentiation early on and ways that you went about that.
Right. I believe that at Churchill we've really done a great job with differentiating ourselves. We started in 26 years ago, and Mike was friends with Dave Ramsey,
right.
And Dave had just come out of a bankruptcy, and we were his first advertiser on his new radio show.
It's called the Dave Ramsey Show.
Yeah, talking about
I've heard of him.
Giving financial advice over the radio. And of course, Mike's first thing to Dave was, Dave, I'll support you, but I really don't think that's going to work, which we laugh about and love. Yeah. and of course it did. But
it's part of his origin story.
Yeah, I believe that building relationship first and seeking to know them as a person and who they are and what's their goal when they're buying a home. A lot of times, we've done it to ourselves as an industry to make it commoditized, is say, hey, I've got a better rate, you need to go with us. Yeah. I have lower fees, you need to go with us. Where really that's not the actual answer. The answer is, well, Jim, how long are you going to be in the home? Because rate may not matter versus fees, or this is a lower rate, but did you know that is got a balloon on it, and it's not going to be good for the term that you're going to be in the home. So asking good questions, getting to know the person and what their total financial goals are, separates us from the others that are just asking, that all they know to do is quote rate. Right. And and so it makes us the difference between Walmart and Nordstrom. And it's that service. Both of them sell a pair of pants, right? But the difference is how they do that and how they take care of the client. And so we're somewhere in between that. We do an awesome job of giving excellent service, but it's more than service. It's about the relationship, right? And being able to say, yeah, down the road, Jim, we're going to continue to monitor your loan over time and make sure every year that you're still in the right thing. And sometimes we're going to tell you, no, you're getting a lot of solicitations to refinance, but it's not in your best interest because you're telling me you're going to be buying in 2 years and you're going to pay $6-7 grand just to refinance. Why are you going to do that? Let's save that $6-7 grand because you're going to need it to put down on your next house. Right. So we're trying to think of the person first. I tell my guys to make an impact over income. And so if you can make an impact for a family, then you build a relationship over time. Right. And that surpasses everything. Okay. And the income comes. Right. So
speaking of sponsorship, I forgot to mention at the top of the show that this episode and this whole show at the moment is brought to you by big.lighting.com. If you need commercial LED upgrades, okay, say you have fluorescent troffers above you, meaning those square rectangular lights, and you hear buzzing or you've kind of noticed a flickering and stuff like that, we can certainly help you out, especially with our LAMP plan, lighting and maintenance partnership plan, where we can make it an operational expense rather than a capital expense. So instead of going through all the hoops and that you need to go through with a capital expense, why not see what we can do? We'll do an audit, see what kind of savings we can achieve for you, as well as take it out of your savings every month and get your upgraded LED lighting system done just like that. Big.lighting.com. Getting back to, you had mentioned before the show came on, you were talking about building up your emergency fund.
Yes.
A lot of wealth building tips. You know, Dave talks about doing 6 to 12 months of income should be your emergency fund.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I'm going to do 12 months. Why not?
He says do 3 to 6 months. I teach FPU at my church and just love that. Number one, it's better for me because I'm a spender.
Right.
Dave says, hey, I'm a spender. My name is Dave. I'm Kevin. I'm a spender. I love it. And but it helps me to stay on track with the baby steps that Dave teaches. And so baby step number 3 is to get to your 3 to 6 months reserves emergency fund. And or whatever you're comfortable with, right? And so in a relationship, if it's husband or wife or partner, but there's one of those partners that does get a little uncomfortable when that savings account is low, right? And so it's very important to make sure that that person is comfortable, right? And so we're moving up into a home that's a bigger house and bigger payment and everything, bigger expenses overall. And so for a while, I'm just padding that emergency fund up a little bit until I get comfortable with all that. And then I'm making practice payments right now. So the payment that I'm going up to, I'm practicing that for the next 6 months.
Conditioning yourself.
Make sure, is this going to be comfortable, right?
I don't think it ever is.
Right, exactly. It sure does help.
Yeah,
right.
Does.
Making practice payments does help, and I'm putting that money into savings, right? And that way, I've just got the extra, right? I'm sure it'll be spent with furniture and stuff like that. But
you do other investments as well?
Oh, definitely. I have several homes that we own in Franklin, Tennessee, and we rent those out, and we're blessed with some fantastic renters. And most of those we've owned and just moved out of and kept, and rent those out and make some good cash flow on that. And then I invest a lot with Raymond James, with Zach Hurd and Bob Searcy over at Southwestern Investments, Raymond James. They do a great job, well diversified in many assets. And when I feel like taking things out of the market, when the market's kind of squirrely, they talk me down. And have saved me and made me a lot of money by doing that.
When it gets squirrely, that's when you put more in. You buy them on its on sale.
Well, and I found, as Proverbs says, in a counsel of many, there's wisdom. And so this B&I group is really a counsel of wisdom for me, because I always go to people that I know and trust, just like people come to us for the mortgage questions and, hey, what's my strategy on buying that dream home when I'm living in a home? How do I get the money out of that and put it into this and do it safely without having to write a contingency on the sale of this home because the seller won't take it? And I've got kids and a dog. There's no way I can show this house, right? And so we form a strategy to help them do that, and that's what makes the difference. You know, that's what makes the difference is it's just knowing that person and being able to give them the advice that's well-rounded. And then I'm still saying, well, do you, especially for my first-time buyers, do you have that 3 to 6 months reserves after you put your money down on this home?
Well, most of them go house poor.
And so, you know, 80% of what's bought in a home is bought the first year. And so, you know, even if they had the money to buy the home, they're going to finance that furniture and they're going to finance the drapes and the fridge and all this stuff. And so I'd rather them not do that. Dave would rather them not do that, pay cash for it and save it up. It doesn't have to all be bought the first year.
See, the thing about cash, and there are a lot of guys out there that are, you're probably well aware of them, that you know, are big proponents. In the past couple of years, you were able to do this a little bit more, but with interest rates on the rise, it's a little bit more difficult. Using the bank's money to make money, to cash flow on things. Paying cash for stuff, it's like, well, if you can get a 0% credit card or for 12 or 18 months, why not use their money and keep your cash on hand if you're disciplined enough to do it? Which brings about another question. A lot of people talk about, you know, there's philosophies that Dave talks about. You got, you know, Grant Cardone, which would love to, he'd love to have Dave on his show because I'm sure it would be fireworks.
Oh, that would be fun.
It would be. You know, and it's I would love for Dave to entertain that notion because I think Dave is like, you know, for people who, like you said, they're getting into life, just married, buying a house.
Well, and in teaching FPU, I see all of them. A lot of them are brand new, married, or or about to be married. I had one that got married, came back, during our 9-week time. But the reason that Dave talks about not having the credit card is because out of the majority that say I'll pay it off every month, that say they will, only about 20 so odd percent actually do.
Right.
And then it carries a balance, and they're charged at 20 something percent.
24, 25, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the credit cards are betting on that. And last time I looked, all these big banks have a much bigger domicile than I do.
Yeah.
And so they've evidently done a better job than the average American.
They're the ones with the names on the buildings.
Yeah, and they're very smart about it. They're very clever.
Yeah.
So these zero down things or zero interest things, most of those roll.
Yeah.
And they start charging interest and late charges and things like that. And so that's the sly part that people think, hey, I'm just going to pay it off every month. But something happens, an emergency, and they don't have their emergency fund. So where do you go? Well, I'm just going to keep this card in my wallet for emergencies.
Right.
Only when an emergency happens. Oh, the carburetor needs to be redone.
Things pop up.
It's an emergency.
Life happens.
Right. Well, I didn't realize that Christmas came up so fast. This is an emergency, right?
You're talking about discipline, basic discipline.
Yeah,
I'm teaching that kind of stuff.
And so that's the part about the credit card, that Dave really preaches, because the majority of the people out there have that happen, and they carry a balance over, and they get charged that enormous interest rate.
And a lot of people, what they don't understand is that credit is so incumbent upon everything now.
Yeah.
Getting a job, getting insurance is incumbent upon credit. And I had Rondi Lambeth out of Las Vegas on my show a couple of episodes ago. Look it up. It was a great interview. He's a credit card, I guess you would say a counselor, but he built a company called Fortress Credit Pro, and does very well with it, and finds ways to help people out of the situations they got themselves into. But the way he talks about building credit and getting your, say, going from a 550 to a 750 credit score, he says you got to have a fat file. You got to have a credit file. You got to, he says, I told him I paid off my truck. He's like, big mistake. I said, what? He goes, yeah, your credit score is probably going to be dinged about 20 points. I said, really?
Yeah.
And because the bank agreed to make that loan to me, and they assumed they were going to make so much money on interest on that loan that if you actually pay it off early, they're going to penalize you for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he says the best thing to do is if you can pay it off, pay it down.
Mm-hmm.
Don't pay off the loan. Pay it off to the amount of months you have left.
Mm-hmm.
Like say you have 48 months, pay it down to $48 and pay $1 a month. I'm like, that's interesting.
That way you're keeping it
open.
you
keep it open.
Yeah.
Credit cards, he says, he says minimum of 3 credit cards constantly revolving, and no more than 10% of the balance of the limit.
And I would not agree with that respectfully, because I checked mine and I have an 845 credit score. I don't have a credit card, right? I do have a couple of mortgages for my homes, right, that are all on time and good history. But you can do it, and you can get things. And in fact, we've even done it for so long that we actually help people with no credit score at all to be able to buy a home and get a mortgage. So it's possible. Now, it's not as easy, okay, and easily accessible. So we're now in that age of where it's not really price as much as it is resistance of buying. If it's easier to buy, then they'll just do it.
Yeah.
We will just do it. Our attention span is that of a gnat.
Yeah.
And if it's easy to do, we just do it. So you have to be intentional about it, but you can actually get along with just a debit card.
Yeah.
And you have to be intentional, and you have to make sure you got emergency funds and all that, but it's a different way to live, but as Dave talks about, that you're living like nobody else, so you can live like nobody else. And so you're actually creating that lifestyle where you can build wealth and give. And I just see so many people with not the $48 balance on their truck, but the $600 payment on their truck, and they're trying to buy a home and they can't qualify. Yeah. And I'm like, God, if you didn't have that truck, or student loans, student loans are big.
I've known people that, They were paying a mortgage payment between two cars on car payments. I'm going,
Oh, yeah.
that's just
That's
the
not
lack.
uncommon, because I see
It's
that
not
for the
uncommon.
last 25 years.
Yeah,
And
but it's a lack of financial literacy
Right.
that's not being taught in high school and things of
Right.
that nature, or even college.
Tennessee is one of the only states that they actually allow any sort of financial counseling like that in the state. I think there's only a certain number of states that have that, and we're one of them. But you're right. It's really taking that responsibility up front, and I'm trying to teach my son. I've got a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old, so I'm trying to teach them right now. The first 10% tithe it, give it to God. I mean, it's all his money anyway. Just give it to him because he wants your heart. Second 10%, save it. That's the one that you don't hear much. Save that 10%.
I got Matt Monero, who I'm a huge fan of. He talks about 40% savings.
Nice. That's
He says,
awesome.
if you can do it, that's what you really need to figure out how to
I'm
put
saving
away.
more than just 10%. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just saying start. Do something.
He says, one of the way he lays out a good plan for financial solvency is take as much and put it away and forget about it. Just get up to $100,000 liquid.
Yes. Exactly.
Get up to about 100 to 150 grand liquid. He says, because that's when the real investments opportunities become real to you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And that's what it's for, is for opportunities or emergencies, right? It's for either. And then you can really do some fun things.
Cole Evans, who's a good buddy of mine, he and I think alike. Churchill should do an educational podcast for new families.
Ah, yes.
I might know somebody who can put that in.
I know some people who can do that. Yeah. We would love to do that, and we probably are doing that. I'm in my own little world, and there may be something like that out there that we're already doing. But yeah, I agree. We do a lot of education locally with our realtors, and we do some home buyer classes, and I believe we've tried to do some live home buyer classes podcasts. But yeah, thank you. I will check on that for sure.
What are some of the things that pop up in these classes? Frequently asked questions, or maybe something out of left field that really surprised you once.
I think it's most people just don't believe that they can buy. It's the rent versus buy scenario, especially in Middle Tennessee. Golly, rent is high. I know I'm a landlord, so rent is high because I'm cash flowing pretty well above my mortgage. So
that's great.
So, but I'm telling you that a lot of buyers can buy a home, and after the tax break, it's actually still less than their rent.
Right.
And then there's three reasons people buy, and most people don't understand it financially. The first reason they buy is it's an inflation hedge. So if you think 100% of your rent is affected by inflation, average rents go up 3 to 6% a year, okay? So as your rent is affected and growing every year, okay, 80% of your mortgage is fixed. If you've got a 30-year fixed rate or a 15-year fixed rate, it's fixed. The only thing that changes is possibly property taxes and homeowners insurance.
Right.
The rest of it is fixed. So you're hedging off inflation. So as your rent goes up, your mortgage stays pretty level. All right. So that's an inflation hedge. Number two, it's a tax break. Currently, right? You can still get a fairly good tax break on it, pretty nice. You can even change your W-4 right after you close to actually have less taken out of your paycheck every month rather than waiting for the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right?
You change your deductions.
There's a site on IRS.gov that actually goes through a withholding calculator to tell you exactly how many withholdings to do to take out that amount, and we calculate that for our customers.
Interesting.
It's an extra thing we do to help them see what the real net effect of buying a home is. And of course, it's an asset leverage. Okay, so if it takes me, $25,000 to buy a $300,000 home, which it's not really that much, but if it did, that $25,000 sitting in the bank that's charging me 24% on my interest rate on my credit card, right, that I roll over every month, they're paying me less than 1% on, right? So $25,000 at 1% versus buying a $300,000 property that averages 6% over the last 30 years.
Right.
So I'm leveraging a much larger asset to build wealth.
Right.
And so those are the three reasons. So we try to educate them on that. And we try to educate them on all the programs that are out there that are available for them to be able to buy a home, right? and to do it responsibly. So we talk about Dave Ramsey's baby steps at the same time. So we're not just trying to get them into debt. We're helping them build wealth by managing their debt properly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. What are you listening to these days? What do you marinate your mind in? Who's your flavor of the month?
Right now, Andy Andrews, The 7 Decisions, is fantastic. And it's one of those books that you have to either read or listen to and then stop and do the exercise he tells you to do. So there's 7 main decisions for life.
Right.
Okay. The first one, I'll just go through that one, is taking responsibility for your life. You are where you are today because of the decisions you've made to get to this point.
Absolutely.
There's no one else's fault.
100%.
Right. And saying, I am responsible. Right. There's no more blaming. Right. It's saying, I'm responsible. But it
something
gives you,
I did put myself in this position.
It gives you freedom to say, now I'm free to be responsible for the trajectory of my life from now on.
And it's the think that comes along, and this is something I've always had issue with, is big education and how it kind of trains people. From what my experience was always, it kind of trains people to think inside a box. So my guest I'm having on later today, he and I are going to be discussing this about taking that leap into what you were possibly meant to do, right? A lot of people, I got to go graduate college, I got to get a good job that's secure. Doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. As you found out, obviously that happened. It got you into a great position with selling mortgages. That also has to be part of the equation, I believe.
Yes.
With people just understanding that they are far more in control of their lives than they realize. If you're in debt, you can only put 10% away or 10% tithing. You can go garage sailing on the weekends and sell stuff on eBay, kind of stuff to spur your income. A lot of people don't think about that. Well, I got to cut my expenses. No, you need to earn more money.
Yes,
you need to.
You're right.
Figure out how to make more.
Yeah, and one of the big things that I've recently been reading and just confirming, I've always known this, is working on our strengths versus our weaknesses. I believe it's John Maxwell in his 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership talked about, taking those strengths and making them, if you're an 8 or a 9 out of 10 on a strength that you have, make it, just work on it all the time and get crazy about making that a 10. People will line up to see a 10.
It's what do they call that?
Don't worry about the 5 or 6 weaknesses because you're never going to get it to a 10. It's not what God made you for. Experts
get wealthy, amateurs don't get wealthy. Kind of thing.
Yeah. And so I think the way that education and my past experience with education in a school sense is that they try to make you well-rounded and work on those weaknesses, where really forget about the weaknesses. I'll delegate someone to do those for me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to be the best. They always say, Frank Sinatra never set up his mic. He just got up and sang.
Yep.
Right?
That's what his strength was.
Yeah. And so that's his strength. That's where he focused just on that one thing, but he got to be the best at it. Right? And so I believe that if people will start that way, number one, I don't remember his name, but I was just listening to a book about this with number one ADHD doctor. Talked about how to cure kids that have ADD or ADHD without any medicine. He says the first thing you do is find out what they do that's really great and help them focus on that and just be the best at it. And eventually their self-confidence gets so good that now they believe they can do other things. So again, we're going back to belief, Jim.
Yeah.
Like, what do you believe? And people, we all have these self-limiting beliefs that keep us from that next stage of success or joy or peace.
One of the biggest revealing notions I've heard recently was, again, from a Brad Lee broadcast. He says, if you hear the voice in your head that says you can't do this, you're not going to really follow through with this, you're probably going to fail. Eventually you're going to actually pick up you're going to put down the protein shake and pick up a piece of chocolate cake, that kind of stuff. He says if it's you statements, like it's not coming from you.
Yes, exactly.
If it's I statements, it's coming from me. And I'm like, I heard about that and I'm going, That is really, that blew my mind.
Yeah, God does not put a thought in your head that is condemning, right? He may have something that's convicting.
Yeah.
Right? There's a difference.
That's always fun.
Yeah. Amen. But he never puts something in your head that's condemning.
Right.
That's coming from another source.
Yep.
And the key is to not believe what everyone says.
Right.
No matter what they are. Maybe if it's a father to a son and the father is saying some limiting belief. I know that my mom, I love her to death, but she would say, now don't get your hopes up.
Right.
Right? Where that's the worst thing she could ever said.
Yeah.
It's like, always get your hopes up. Hope is where it is. I mean, that's what sales is about, is going out and generating something to happen so you hope and stay in the business long enough for it to start working.
And that energy, enthusiasm is transferable. It's infectious, especially,
I love you, Mom. So that's
getting into selling and sales, I mean, that's one of the things I learned. I always tell people the car business for me was one of the best universities I ever attended.
Yes.
I mean, it was learning how to think on your feet, how to present, how to learn a sales process. I thought I knew how to sell before I got in that business. Then I really knew how to sell, when I really got into it and understood what a sales process looked like. The meet and greet, the fact uncovery, the, discovery, rapport building, value proposition, the test drive and the demo and stuff like that, coming back for a trial close at the end and, figuring out how to get them to the end zone. I mean, either a short sale or a short-term sale or a long-term sale, all these processes come into play. Was that something that was with you from the beginning, or did you have to learn that as well as, I mean, mortgage, you're doing a lot of relational selling.
Yes.
It's not transactional at all.
And we all sell something. All right.
Absolutely. So we're all salespeople.
You've heard people say, I'm not a salesperson, right?
Yes, you are.
You just sold me on the fact you're not a salesperson.
Yep.
Right.
And if you believe that.
Right.
Yep.
We start selling from the time we come out of the
womb.
We start crying.
Yep.
And
I want food.
Mom and dad help us.
Yep.
Right.
And we're loud.
That's a sell.
And it's funny with my kids.
And kids are better at it. But at some point, something happens to us.
We become hardwired.
Yeah.
Don't talk to strangers.
Something happens to us. Right. And then we stop selling. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And we go, I'm not a salesperson.
I don't want to bother you.
Right. Right. And so I think I grew up always selling.
Yeah.
And fortunately, my parents were very encouraging. And whenever we had all those little drives, those little school drives, magazines or cookies or whatever it was, I was going for the top.
Sure.
And here's a funny thing. So I'm 50, so this was a while back. And
you're young.
Yeah, in elementary school, my goal was to win this Bowie knife that was like this big. It was like huge. And so the school helped me get that and win a huge Bowie knife. Right. So that wouldn't happen today. But
no.
But it was awesome, and it was a goal. And I went around knocking on doors to do that. And so I think I started doing it from a young age, and I had encouragement, which is I feed off of encouragement.
Right.
So that helped me a lot, and I think I've just always done that, but never always the right way. So that education, that continuing to change degrees and get better and better about listening and hearing rather than just talking.
Yeah. Got 2 ears and one mouth.
Yeah. Not show up and throw up and just show up and listen and seek to understand. And I think that's the part that really makes a difference, and people can see that and feel that and know the genuineness of that.
In Big Dot, we just came up with our what do they call that? The mission statement, the core values that support the mission statement. And I heard something recent. I'm a big fan of not using cliche traditional language and stuff. It comes from my time in marketing. I always wanted to be different on the air. I wanted my commercials to sound different, to be written differently. So our mission statement came from a client's mouth, actually. She called us up and said, listen, we cannot find anybody to come and fix this thing we've got wrong in our store. If you came out to do this, you'd be our heroes. And that word stuck with me. Nice. And I said, why don't we just make our mission statement simple, to be the heroes to our clients? How are we going to do that?
I love it.
the first core value I came up with was listen twice as much as you speak. Okay, listen twice as much. Twice as more, as I said with my operations. And he called me out because he's a grammar snob. He's like, twice as more? I'm like, yeah, twice as much. Okay, sorry. And the other thing is continuous learning. You know, I'm not against college and stuff like that at all.
Me neither.
I'm always for it. I always tell my kids, and it's funny you bring up the kids. With my kids, I've been telling them to, always be learning.
Yes.
If you fail on a test, this is your job right now. You have to do well on the tests. Right. You have to do your work in school. That's your job. If you fail at it, and my son will beat himself up. I said, listen, it's good that you're holding yourself accountable, but I'm going to tell you something that was never told to me. This does not define you.
Yes.
I love that. It's like my father telling my brother and I. Yeah, my father telling my brother and I that, when we grew up, he would always say, I will always tell you boys that I love you, and I'm not afraid to tell you that. And to my brother and I, we were like, okay, well, it's kind of given.
Yeah.
But he was never told that.
Yeah.
I think, and not that my parents did us wrong by telling us it didn't define us, because back then, if you didn't go to college, it did define you.
Yes.
And I didn't graduate. Okay.
It was a different generation.
Yeah. And it's like, my daughter wants to go to culinary school, and I said, knock yourself out.
That's awesome.
Do it.
Yeah.
Okay. You are living in possibly the best time in human history right now.
It is. It is.
It really
the best time with the most opportunity.
Shay Horseman says great beards.
Goodness. Yeah.
Great beards, not gray beards. I've got a little bit of gray.
They're great too.
They are great. And that's very important to impart to my kids, is that, not only do I tell them that I love them and I tell them not afraid, and they look at me like, okay, but I say that this does not define you. If you don't want to go to college, you don't have to.
Right.
I know you'll figure it out. I want that entrepreneurial spirit alive in them. And I told them and they laugh at me all the time, and they're, oh, here he goes again. The biggest skill you can have is how to sell.
It is.
How to sell.
It is. It is, because the technical stuff, the mortgage industry has a lot of technical to it. So you've got to know that, and you've got to be good with those numbers and doing the right thing there. But when you get beyond that, it's all about people skills and soft skills, just learning how to read others and learning how to take great care of others.
Yep.
Another thing I wanted to mention that's really impacted me this year is the 5-second rule. Mel Robbins. Have you ever? Fantastic.
I haven't heard of it, but yeah,
it's so great. But what it teaches is just a simple thing that Mel teaches is just whenever something comes up in your life that let's just say it's getting up in the morning. That was her thing, right? Rather than hitting the snooze button, get up, right? And so when the alarm goes off and you're sitting there in your mind making a decision, am I going to get up or am I going to hit the snooze, right? There's that decision point. You go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you get up. And there's a thing that happens in your brain that causes you to stop reasoning with yourself, to negotiate with yourself to get up, and you just do it, right? And looking back in my life, I can see that I started that a while back before I heard of Mel, before she actually did this, and but it's pretty cool because when I think about doing something that I know I should do, I just go ahead and do it, and then I figure out how to make it work later. Because I find that if I wait at all, I will negotiate myself out of that. So if I think, hey, I need to make a call to this realtor, I need to make a call to this customer, or I need to, whatever it is, I feel that that's God kind of telling me, hey, I'm helping you, listen. And I just go and do it.
Gary Vaynerchuk talks about, execution over ideation wins any day. He says, how many people have I run into that said, Uber, I've had that idea. Well, you didn't do it.
Right.
You can say that until you have that regret until the grave because someone else took the idea and ran with it.
Exactly.
You didn't.
Yeah.
You could say that you had the idea. Well, prove it.
Yeah.
It's very true. And a lot of people psych themselves out by not. They don't really allow themselves to fail. I know so many people. I knew a friend of mine from Vegas who said, well, I'm going to start my own business as soon as I go to I'm going to get my master's in business. I'm going, Why? What?
Yeah.
Well, I need my master's. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You just need to do you just do it.
Yeah.
They're not going to teach you anything that's relevant to learning it real life and getting
Yeah.
a mentor and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Are you a goal guy? Do you write your goals down and stuff?
I do.
Every morning, every night? Or?
What I do is I write my goals down, and then I write on a 3x5 card those goals as if I've already had it. And then that way I'm programming my thinker part of the brain to tell my doer part of the brain what to do and what to look for out there in life. And so I do that all the time. And here's what I found. It's kind of funny on the amount of money that I'm saving. I had a certain amount that I set, and I put that on there for about 5 years, and I'd say that every morning on my way to work. I have a 3x5 card. I'm not reading it because I really know what it says. It just kind of keeps me on track. And then I read it the other day, and I was like, wait, I'm already doing that now. I was like, dang it, I should have made that higher.
Yeah.
And so my belief system was just at that point for a long time, and now I'm able to raise that belief. But I believe it really starts, especially if you're just starting to do this, it starts with a little success. Who was that admiral that wrote the book about Make Your Bed?
I know who you're talking about. That video
fantastic
was going around.
Book.
Yeah.
But the story
changed the world.
Yeah. Great video. I read that book and listened to it a couple of times. But basically, he just said, start with making your bed. Right? And I was in the military, and we had to make that bed, man, and it had to be tight. You could bounce a quarter on it. Well, it started with a success. I had a success, and success breeds success. So you continue to have those successes. So I have a big thing that mornings are very important for me to have a successful day. So I start at 5 a.m. every morning, no matter what is going on somewhere else, right? And I get up, I'll have my coffee, I'll do my devotional and pray, but I'll read a little bit, and I'll have a routine. I'll make my bed. I'll have a routine of what I do to already have a successful day before I ever start the day, right? And I believe that that's a huge difference, and a huge catalyst to the change that I've seen over the last 5-10 years. It's just getting up early, taking that time with me and the Lord, and with my thoughts and my goals, setting goals for the ideal vision of where I want things to be, and then rehashing those over and over. Not just set them and forget them and look back next January when I'm setting new goals, did I hit them? But continuing to put them in my face and say those are where my goals are, because I do believe that your doer part of your brain, your subconscious part, finds ways to make those goals happen. They really do. It's just an amazing tool that is just incredible how God made us, that we can program ourselves, even if it's not true. We can program something to happen with just the way that we're giving our self-talk to ourselves. It's just amazing how that happens.
Yeah. I had a picture hanging on my wall when I was a kid that said justification for higher education, and it had the house on the hill with a 6-car garage overlooking the ocean, all that stuff. And I can still envision it this day. But the higher education part was what was limiting for me, because I went to college. It just didn't work. It wasn't me. It wasn't my thing. But that was a powerful limiting notion on me, because it affected me for probably a decade. Not graduating, because where my father and I worked was in the phone business, and because I was in a blue-collar job, and the kids who went into the blue-collar trade school were considered losers, I mean, I kid you not, I kind of had that stigma on myself, and it was probably all self-imposed. My father would say, "Look, you're the heroes to people. You're coming out to fix their phones. You got." I'm like, I just don't see it that way. I feel like I'm lower than dirt to them.
Those self-limiting beliefs.
To these white-collar, attorneys, and they went to school. It was awful. But until I got into radio, and I always talk about identity throughout, most of my formative years growing up, my single digits, my double digits, getting into the teen years. I had an identity at age 11 and 12 when I became a drummer. It was mine. It didn't come from my parents. My brother was always a piano player, musician, but it was mine. It was something that I was able to get really good at. I knew I was good at it, and it was part of me. And if I can get in front of somebody and actually show them how good I am, it really did feed my my ego. That translated. I got myself into, well, hey, I should go into radio, and I did radio in college, but hey, it doesn't pay that well. Well, I'm done. I want to make a lot of money.
Right.
Well, the only way I'm going to make a lot of money is to go maybe take over Dad's business or whatever. Getting in, I was an electrician for a while, made really good money, but I hated getting up in the morning. I hated it.
Yeah.
The pain of staying the same exceeds the pain of change.
Yes.
So I made the change. I said,
Yes.
you know what? I'm fine with not making that much money in radio, but at least I'll love what I'm doing.
Right.
So radio became my second identity, and I'll never forget, I moved to Las Vegas, came back for a visit up in Danbury, Connecticut. My now sister-in-law was a girl I went to high school with. She was part of the popular club, the preps, if you will. So a lot of the people that were coming to this get-together she was having over the holidays one time we all knew each other, but we didn't hang together in high school. So one of the guys who was like the class president, and I started talking at this party, hey, how have you been? And he was making like 85, 90 grand a year. I was nowhere near that at that time. I was in radio in Vegas, working for a talk station, loved my job. And I said, that's, I get up every morning excited to go to work.
Yeah.
And he goes, I wish I could say that. God, I hate what I do. I'm making a great salary. We just bought a house. And, you can tell he's doing the paint himself into the corner kind of financial thing. And I'm going, huh. Well, at least I enjoy my life. That's something.
It is everything, Jim. I mean, the contentment, and I'm the same way. I love what I do. Yeah. I mean, I am so passionate, and don't tell my bosses, but I'd do this if I didn't get paid. I'd still be doing it. Okay.
I'll edit that part out.
But, but I mean, just because I love seeing the transformation of that new couple, or if I've got someone that's moving and they're trying to figure out, how do I get into my dream home when I own this home?
Yeah.
I love creating that strategy that makes it win for them financially.
Yeah.
And that's such a win. And the great news is we get to see that a lot every month, and it's rewarding. It really is rewarding. I drove all the way to Lebanon yesterday for a closing for my couple, and they were like, wow, we didn't think you were going to be coming, And I said, I wouldn't miss this. Yeah. This is the celebration. This is the time. All the hard work is over. And we hugged and had a great time. But I love that. I'm passionate about that, and that gets me up. But having that morning time, and I exercise in the morning also, having that and gives me the energy and the platform to be able to do that, and have a long day a lot of times, and the stamina to do that. And so I really believe that that's a huge part. I, like you, had self-limiting beliefs. I just wasn't born with a high IQ at all, a low probably. So my ACT score was so low that I would not have gotten into the University of Alabama now. There's no way I would have gotten in. So I just worked really hard, and I actually last 2 years I had Dean's List at Alabama, but it was hard work. I had to work harder than others, but I'm grateful for that because that taught me how to work hard.
Yeah.
But so I believe, like you, school is fine. It teaches you how to learn, I think, and it teaches you discipline, and it teaches you those things. Now, for certain educations, certain professions, it's needed and necessary.
I agree.
But and I think it's good for everyone to go through that to learn how to learn, right? But it's so fun. I was talking to my 15-year-old last night, and coming home from math tutoring, and he said, I've been watching YouTube and I'm learning about mushrooms. And he said, I've learned 120-something different mushrooms, and I think I'm interested in that. I'm like, okay, learn about it.
Yeah. You can.
And so he got an app that you can take a picture of something that tells you all about it. And so I'm like, learn about it. I want to encourage you on that. I said, you could still go to school, do your best, right? Do your best. And at everything you do, right? But follow that passion passion. Follow whatever your passion is, because that's what God gave you.
Yeah, gifts and talents.
I wrote on my Facebook, that you have that little part to say what you're about and what you believe. And I'm like, there's 2 times in your life that are most significant in your life. Number 1, when you're born, and number 2, when you find out why you were born. And so I really want them to find out the real why of why they were born, just like I believe I have. And,
self-awareness.
Yeah. And it's so freeing, because then you don't worry about the weaknesses. You don't worry about all those things that there's nothing you can really do to change, because that's not how God made you.
It's finding that identity.
Yeah.
And that your identity is going to help build up your confidence. But Kevin, how can people find you and follow you?
Oh, well, Kevin.Watson@ChurchillMortgage.com is the email. I'm at KevinWatsonHomeLoan.com, singular, homeloan.com. Phone number is 615-364-2548. I'm a texter, so you can text me, you can call me.
You're on Instagram too, aren't you?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook.
What's your Instagram handle?
Oh, Lord, I don't know.
we got to get you going, man.
I'm 50,
That's
man.
Okay. Doesn't matter.
I don't know. I'm on there. I guess you could search me, right?
Yeah, I believe I've actually seen your profile, and it had a really snazzy name to it. It was like a very poignant personal brand kind of moniker. No, it's a good thing.
Sorry, I don't know it.
It's a good thing. We'll have to look it up. I'll find out what it is, and we'll put it up there as well, so people can start following. Start using your
brother.
Instagram. Yeah. Thanks for being on. We really appreciate it. If you're listening to this, of course, it's been brought to you by big.lighting.com. Check us out, man. If you need lighting upgrades, you want to convert from those old, nasty fluorescent or metal halide or incandescent bulbs, give your bill a break and give us a call. Big.lighting.com. We can introduce you to the lamp plan, the operational approach, or make it a capital approach, or we can find the financing for you. Big.lighting.com. Of course, reach out to me, Jim McCarthy, at Jim McCarthy VOS is my Instagram handle. Follow us on Facebook, and please like, subscribe, and rate the podcast, if you will. Again, thanks, Kevin, for being on. I appreciate it, brother.
Friend.
All right.
I appreciate you. That was fun.
This is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com /podcast.